We believe we rule this planet. But beneath the waves, the rules change entirely. Here, we are no longer the apex predators. In 1916, America learned this the hard way. A massive heat wave drove thousands to the Jersey Shore. Scientists insisted sharks were harmless to humans. Then, a young man was killed taking an evening swim. Authorities dismissed it as a bizarre anomaly. They were wrong. 5 days later, a bellboy lost his life. Panic gripped the entire eastern coastline. But the nightmare was moving away from the sea. Matawan Creek was a quiet, muddy freshwater stream. A local captain spotted a dark fin swimming upstream. The townspeople laughed at his frantic warnings. Young Lester Stillwell was playing in the creek. He was violently pulled beneath the surface. It was a biological terror. A brave rescuer dove in to find the boy. He too was killed by the unseen monster. 30 minutes later, the beast struck again downstream. A teenager was severely bitten, but miraculously survived. The town descended into absolute madness. Men lined the banks with rifles and dynamite. Bounties were placed on every shark on the coast. Hundreds of innocent sharks were slaughtered in revenge. The legend was born. A great white was eventually caught with human remains. But experts debate if it was the sole killer. The creek attacks strongly point to a bull shark. The mystery of the true culprit remains unsolved. The summer of 1916 changed our psyche forever. The ocean was no longer a safe playground. It was a dark forest hiding apex predators. Our primal fear of being eaten alive was reawakened. Fear took hold. The media capitalized on this new terror. Sharks became the ultimate monsters of the deep. But this was just a glimpse of their power. Decades later, a far greater tragedy would unfold. Not near a beach, but in the middle of nowhere. A story that remains the deadliest attack in history. It happened during the brutal climax of World War II. A secret mission that doomed hundreds of men. They were entirely unprepared for the horror below. The nightmare begins. July 1945, the Pacific Ocean. The USS Indianapolis was sailing in absolute secrecy. She had just delivered components for the atomic bomb. Her unescorted journey back was meant to be routine, but a Japanese submarine spotted her silhouette. 2 torpedoes struck the starboard side. The explosions tore the massive cruiser apart. There was no time. 900 men plunged into the midnight sea. Covered in oil, they clung to debris in the pitch black. When the sun rose, they realized they were not alone. The explosions had sent acoustic shockwaves for miles. Drawn by the sound and blood, the predators arrived. The Oceanic Whitetip is a relentless pelagic hunter. They began circling the exhausted, bleeding sailors. At first, they bumped the men to test their prey. The ultimate threat. Then, the first agonizing screams echoed across the water. The sharks targeted the dead and wounded first. But as their frenzy grew, they turned on the living. Men huddled together, kicking and punching the water. They watched their friends pulled silently into the depths. Dehydration and delirium began to take hold. Some drank salt water, succumbing to madness. They swam away from the group, offering themselves to the shadows. Nowhere to hide. For 4 agonizing days, the massacre continued. The men prayed for rescue, but nobody knew they were missing. The secrecy of their mission had doomed them. The water was stained red beneath the scorching sun. Sleep meant slipping beneath the surface forever. On the 4th day, a patrol plane spotted the oil slick. The pilot saw the shark fins slicing through the water. He broke orders and landed his seaplane to save the stragglers. A devastating toll. Rescue ships finally arrived under the cover of darkness. They pulled the broken survivors from the feeding grounds. The psychological scars would haunt them for a lifetime. It remains the worst naval disaster in US history. A chilling testament to the ocean's unforgiving nature. But oceanic whitetips usually hunt far from shore. What happens when they invade shallow tourist waters? In 2010, the Red Sea turned into a horror scene. A new mystery. Paradise lost. Sharm el-Sheikh is an Egyptian paradise. Crystal clear waters and vibrant coral reefs attract millions. It was a diver's dream, considered completely safe. Until December 2010. In just 5 days, paradise turned into a nightmare. 3 Russian tourists were brutally attacked in shallow water. They survived, but suffered horrific amputations. An unprecedented event. Panic swept through the luxury resorts. Beaches were immediately closed by authorities. A hunt was launched for the rogue predators. 2 sharks were caught, and beaches prematurely reopened. It was a fatal mistake. The very next day, a German tourist was killed while snorkeling. The ocean was clearly not safe. Marine biologists rushed in to solve the mystery. A shocking discovery. An oceanic whitetip and a Mako shark were the culprits. But why were deepwater sharks hunting in the shallows? The investigation uncovered a web of human interference. Illegal sheep dumping from cargo ships had lured them in. The sharks associated the coastline with an easy meal. Furthermore, reckless dive operators had been hand-feeding them. They conditioned the sharks to associate humans with food. We had changed their natural behavior. A deadly habit. The sharks had lost their natural fear of people. They saw the snorkelers not as threats, but as competitors, or worse, as a source of sustenance. The Egyptian government implemented strict new diving laws. Feeding marine life became a severe criminal offense. The rogue sharks eventually moved on to deeper waters, but the damage to the local economy was devastating. The illusion of the safe, controlled ocean was broken. Economic collapse. We realized that our actions have deadly consequences. When we disrupt the balance, the ocean strikes back. But in some parts of the world, the imbalance is permanent. There is an island where the ocean is effectively off limits. A place where surfing is a game of Russian roulette. Welcome to the deadliest waters on the planet. A volcanic paradise in the Indian Ocean, where bull sharks have claimed the coastline as their own. The crisis deepens. The banned ocean. Reunion Island is a stunning French territory. Its massive waves once made it a global surfing mecca. But today, the beaches are hauntingly empty. Between 2011 and 2019, a terrifying spike in attacks occurred. 11 people were killed in a horrific wave of violence. The culprits were massive, aggressive bull sharks. They stalked the murky waters near the surf breaks. A grim statistic. The attacks were uniquely brutal and swift. Surfers and swimmers were taken just feet from the shore. The community was paralyzed by grief and fear. The government took an unprecedented step. They legally banned surfing and swimming outside lagoons. Entering the water became a punishable crime. The island's vibrant surf culture was destroyed overnight. But locals demanded to know why this was happening. Driven by biology, scientists pointed to a newly created marine reserve. The reserve banned fishing, allowing fish populations to boom. This abundant food source drew the bull sharks to the coast. Simultaneously, wastewater runoff clouded the coastal waters. It created the perfect, murky hunting ground for predators. The sharks thrived while humans were forced out. A bitter war erupted between conservationists and surfers. Surfers demanded a massive culling of the shark population. The ecosystem at risk. The government deployed underwater nets and drumlines. These baited hooks aimed to catch and kill the large sharks. But the ocean is vast, and the predators are smart. Tragic deaths still occurred despite the defensive measures. A young surfing champion was taken just feet from the shore. His death ignited protests across the entire island. People felt they were losing their connection to the sea. Reunion remains a highly divided, traumatized community. A costly war. It is a stark example of an unresolved conflict. We cannot easily fence off the wild ocean. The predators are simply following their ancient instincts. But Reunion is not alone in this ongoing battle. Across the ocean lies another massive coastline. A place renowned for the most famous predator of all, the great white shark. And they are facing a crisis of their own. The ultimate predator. The future of fear. Western Australia boasts some of the world's best beaches. It is also the domain of the great white shark. For decades, an uneasy truce existed between man and shark. But a sudden cluster of fatal attacks shattered the peace. Surfers and divers were being hit with alarming frequency. Public outcry reached a fever pitch. The government implemented a catch-and-kill policy, a controversial move. Any large shark caught was shot and discarded. The policy sparked global outrage from conservationists. They argued that culling provides only a false sense of security. It indiscriminately kills marine life without stopping attacks. Science began to offer smarter, non-lethal solutions. Acoustic tagging programs track the movements of sharks. Real-time apps alert surfers when a shark swims near. Drones patrol the skies, spotting shadows beneath the waves. Technology over terror. We are learning to use technology rather than violence. But the psychological fear of the shark remains deeply rooted. We fear them because they remind us of our vulnerability. In the water, our technological dominance disappears. We are slow, clumsy, and entirely out of our element. Sharks are millions of years of evolutionary perfection. Yet sharks are vital to the health of our oceans. Without apex predators, marine ecosystems collapse. Perspective. Millions of sharks are slaughtered yearly for their fins. The true monster in the ocean is not the shark. It is human greed and environmental destruction. To survive, we must change our perspective. We must respect the ocean as a wild wilderness. When we enter the water, we are entering their home. We must accept the inherent risks of the deep blue. The stories of 1916 and the Indianapolis are tragic. The real victims. But fatal attacks are rare anomalies in a vast world. We can learn to coexist with these magnificent creatures. By understanding their behavior, we can stay safe. We don't have to conquer the ocean to enjoy it. We simply have to respect the kings of the deep. Because a healthy ocean needs its predators. Without them, the balance is lost forever. They are the true masters of this world.